Erik, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. I didn't know what she said. Was it good or not? Was it? You never know. It's such a great honor and a privilege to be here with you. And I always like these unconferences. I'm used to fly out all over the world, do presentations everywhere, but I got a little bit more picky what I do or what I don't do. So I only pick 1 or 2, 3 a year to do really in the physical place, and most of them I do online also because of the environment. So this is a special thing for me. It's been a while, so if I'm nervous or failing completely, remember the DOC1 slogan, we fail, hooray! This is always a great thing to do at unconferences, but hopefully not. Let's start. Is there a timer that I can look at, or is someone waving at me when we do too long? Timer is there. Okay. As was said, probably, my name is Erik Boekesteijn. I'm from the Netherlands. I work in the National Library at this moment. You can see it behind me. The train runs right under the building. But I've worked in libraries my whole life. I started out in 1985 in the music library. I was awarded, before I forget, Best Librarian of the Netherlands in 2015, which is a great honor and a great challenge, and that leaves you with a lot of jealous other librarians who want to be Best Librarian in the Netherlands, because when you're lucky, you got to have dinner with the King and Queen. I had lunch with the King and Queen together with some actors, some writers, some people famous in the Netherlands, and I had the pleasure of talking for 20 minutes with our Queen about the use of libraries. And the thing was that she came to me and she said, Erik, we lost our dog, and my daughter was so distressed about the missing of the dog that we didn't know what to do. And then someone said, go to the library and look for a book on loss and grief if you lose a pet. And she was helped in such a good way at the library with dealing with the loss of the dog that our Amalia, for future queen, was really helped by the library in the Netherlands, which is a lovely story. I'm a singer. Basically, I consider myself a singer. That's why I got involved in the Music Library of Rotterdam. I'm making an album at the moment. Petar stole one of my tracks and he's selling it on the internet already, which is not a good thing. Where is he? Stop doing that. My job at the National Library at this moment is very diverse. I basically have freedom to do whatever I want, which is nice. But also you have to make choices. So there's a lot on my table. Part of it is innovation. Libraries can call me. They can call the National Library and say, we have an idea, we have a plan, we want to do something new, but we don't exactly know how to do it. Can you send Erik to help out? And I make choices. I choose like 4 or 5 at one moment to have on my table to work with. And the questions are very broad, from how do I build a makerspace to what is my strategy for the next 10 years, or what about my mission? What sort of libraries do I need to hire? Very broad. So that's one of the things. And the other thing is international work. The moment I joined the National Library in 2016, IFLA was working on a new global strategy. You all know IFLA, I presume? Yeah, of course. So they came to me and said, can you still hear me? Is the mic working? Yeah. They came to me and said, Erik, do you want to work for IFLA? Do you want to help us make a new global strategy for IFLA? I said, I just have a job. I'm not going to do it, but I can ask the National Library if I'm allowed to create a workshop to help you come to a new global strategy. So there it is. So I did this. This is in Athens, new library in Athens. If you've not been to Athens, it's well worth a visit. The library is built on a slope next to the Opera House, so you have a garden and you can walk all up. And you go to the penthouse of the library. It's a beautiful building. But as I said, I worked in libraries as a front desk person helping people with finding music or whatever, to the design of this library, DOK. Not DOK 1, it was before DOK 1. DOK in Delft, we call it the Library Concept Center, and this was the moment I started thinking about design of libraries and what it should look like. We were given this building by the city council. City council is paying for our library in the Netherlands on the condition that the art library, we had an art library, the music library, and the regular public library were to be one organization, merged into one organization. So my job from being a front office desk worker to a designer started here. The old building, and this is when we came to the new building. It was a supermarket that was totally demolished, and we had to build something new. This is 2007. You can see the PlayStation 2. It's old, but it still was like a really special thing. The staff from DOK 1 in Aarhus came over at the very early stages of thinking about DOK 1, do a village workshop to come to what should DOKLAB-a look like. We had our own genius bar here where people could come. It was staffed with students of the University of Delft, and they helped people with making videos, learning how to be online, to create content for the web, everything else, digital photography. They could come to this desk and they were helped by their peers most of the time to learn what to do. And the librarians were also learning from these students, of course. Stairs, some photographs. The library design that was done in between 2004 and 2007 was radically changed already 10 years later. And that's the thing that I hear a lot. If you design a new library at this moment, the times are so agile, you know, everything is going so fast that you may, if you look at your building every 10 years to see how you need to change it. So this is the new library in Delft, a huge cafe restaurant, a lot of colors, open spaces, daylight. I always consider to be light and sound most crucial elements for a library. If the sound doesn't work, your people are not going to stay very long. If the light is not pleasant, people are not going to stay very long. The youth department, just some photographs. It's still worth paying a visit. If you come to the Netherlands, I'm happy to help you out and connect you to some libraries to visit. I started out a world tour visiting libraries in 2007. I read a book that says there will be no libraries in 2018 by Richard Watson. I think he was from Australia. And I said, we cannot allow this to happen. So I got on the road, I found some money from library organizations, and I went to the US, and I traveled from New York to Monterey in 3.5 weeks with 2 colleagues, and we created videos and content for the web. We visited 14 libraries, talked to many people, and am I doing this? Somehow I'm doing this. I need a mark. I need a mark. Is this it? It's still a bit, isn't it? Are we okay? Do I need a mic? Yeah, we need a mic for the recording. But anyway, am I standing in front of it? That's why I'm going out of the way. It's okay? Can you see the slide or not? Okay. So the rules for the library and the rules for the design of the library, as people wanted to stay, expressed the wish to stay longer in the library, changed over the years, and so did the role of the library here. Pat Lesinski said to me, like, Erik, I used to be a library director, and I used to be working on staff and on collection and on opening hours, finding budgets, but now the city demands me to think about the whole cultural aspect of the city. What's going on what's going on there? What's going on in the theater? Can you do something about this situation over there? How can you help? So the role of the library director and the library staff became far broader than only that. So the library itself needed to change. User experience Usually we as librarians think like we can do this. We know what our customers want and we decide this looks great, but we not often enough ask people how they look at it, and they can have like a very different perspective from the other end looking at it, as you can understand. So what is this? What comes to mind when I work I work still frequently on libraries around the planet. The National Library allows me to do work in London, in the British Library. They're building a new extension to the British Library from Pancras to Euston Station. They asked me to come over. I say, what is the library? What is the library really about? Zaha Hadid, the famous architect from London, who passed away already quite some time ago, created this university of which the library is a space. And this was the first international project that I did. And one of their staff members contacted me yesterday. He said, I'm working on a new project, Erik. Can you still do? I have to see if I have time for this. Of course, there it is, the DOK1 library, a place that always makes me very happy. Have many of you been to Next Library Conference or to DOK1? Some of you have. It's a stunning place. I always show this photograph to show that everything that's, not everything, but most of the things happen on the ramp in plain sight, in plain view, that to show that this library is a vibrant place. There's life happening right here. I think this is children's books book. I'm looking at Lisbeth, Anna. And you see not all the children are very happy. Some of the children are... But like I said, the balloons make up for it a lot. I love the gong story, that this artwork, whenever there's a new baby born in the town of Aarhus, they sound the gong and everybody in the library knows, hey, we have a new baby in the house, which is such a lovely idea to be that place in the city and the region where you can experience this. My name on the wall is not important. The airport library is something that we designed with two other people in Schiphol. If you come to the Amsterdam airport, they asked, like, we have the Rijksmuseum at the airport. Couldn't we have a library at the airport? And it's unstaffed, unfortunately, which I don't really like, but it's still there. And it's still a way to collect, to read, to have good internet, comfortable chairs, and to post your own travel stories. And I like the idea that if you have such great libraries in your country, to be proud and to put a library up there to show that you're all about libraries. Another library I worked on was in Sydney, Green Square Plaza. It ended up in the top 5 at one year at the IFLA Award of Best Library in the World. This library was built in a region that was completely redeveloped. So the whole budget for the redevelopment with offices and everything else was like 2 billion. I don't know, a crazy amount of money. But they wanted the library to be back there first because that would be the living room for all the people slowly coming back to the area, taking in their apartments, the offices, and to be like a hub for everyone to be there. So what do you do with a place like that? It's 3,000 square meters, not too big. And then they wanted to use the whole square, the plaza. So here you can see the library runs mostly underground. The tower is like rooms where you can have workshops, where you can have a concert, where you can have a classroom. They're very flexible. And the cafe is outside, as sort of a Louvre-like design. You have to check it out if you want. Green Square Plaza Library. It's gorgeous. They can open up the cafe different hours than the library, so they can close the library and only use the cafe and the restaurant. Was one of the demands they had. Green, I think libraries nowadays have quite a few plants. You've all been given a tree, I think, in your goodie bag. So plant it somewhere in your library. I think plants is something I see come across a lot. The stairs, as you see the ramp in DOK1 and you saw the stairs in DOK and Delft, I've brought this stair idea to quite a few libraries, and it works. If you have an outdoor performance or you have an indoor performance and you have these theater-like setting for the stairs, it really helps. I think the library that I'm most proud of, I'm sorry to say, but is this one in Chester, in England. Story House. I came up with the name, and I was brought in. They called me at one point when the guys who were building the plan to build this were two theater producers. They did outdoor theater in the region of Chester. And they wanted to have a building for their theater. And they were once again given the building on the condition that they would put the library in there. They would have the old cinema. It used to be a cinema in the 40s, in the 50s. And they would bring a cafe restaurant in the building. So theater, cinema, library, cafe, restaurant. That was all going to be in Storyhouse. And the library people, the librarians, they wanted out. Because they said, we are part of a library network. We have 25 libraries. We have a union. What's it going to be like if we are like governed by theater producers? We have to be open 7 days a week, starting out 8 o'clock in the morning, closing when the theater closes, 11 o'clock in the evening. We're not going to do it. So they asked me to come in to bring them back on, because if the library would back out, the whole project would not happen. It would fall apart. It would not be this building. So I came over, I did a few workshops. I was a real Gordon Ramsay, so I posted in their old library, and I sat down in their old library, and I interviewed some people. There was like 2 old men from an Alzheimer cafe standing there, promoting the Alzheimer Cafe, talking about Alzheimer and what you could do. And the librarians were having their coffees, and they wouldn't give coffee to those volunteers talking about the Alzheimer Cafe. So there were a number of things that I thought. The teen department, the young teen department, had 6 sacks, but they were quite dirty, and they had like DVDs such as Dirty Dancing on the shelf, which is not the latest. Some people still love that movie. I mean, it's... my daughters love it, but it's quite an old movie, so it was not up to date. So I really sat down with him and I said, you call yourself a librarian? You should be ashamed. You're not worth the title. And you can do this if you're a bloody foreigner. You're just from the outside, and you can come in and you're just this guy from the Netherlands doing that. So I won them over, and what won them over, I think, was... This was when I came in. You still see the Art Deco, the gorgeous Art Deco shapes of the building was all still there. I brought along that the role of the librarian, I talked for hours, of course. The role of the librarian was to curate curiosity, to send people away with more questions than they came in with in the building. Sort of tickle their imagination and makes it exciting. The feeling to have a question is such a great feeling. We're not used to that. We're used to give answers and to help people and okay, thank you so much. And they are on their way. But now the idea was to sort of use all the things that are happening in your building to stimulate thought, to provoke ideas, to come up with new ideas. So there's a little video here.
So the library runs right through the building. So there are books everywhere. There are books backstage, front of house, in the cafe, in the restaurant. There are dedicated reading rooms, dedicated children's storytelling rooms.
It's been fabulous that so many different people have been using the library. It's like we've got families with different ages of children coming in. There's students using it for studying. There's people reading the newspapers. There's people here getting their books like they always did.
It's such a thriving and busy environment, this library, in a wonderful way.
The library card system is exactly the same as it's always been. You use your library card that you always did use for Cheshire Libraries to check your books out. We've got self-service machines. Another thing that we do here is that we've got computers that you can use for an hour a day for free. There's also free Wi-Fi, really fast free Wi-Fi that you can use. You just sign up with your Storyhouse account, which takes 2 minutes, and then you're on.
The really special thing about our library is our opening hours. So we open our restaurant at 8 o'clock in the morning to start serving breakfast, so that's when our library opens. We don't shut the doors in our theatre until the last show's cleared and out, and so that's when our library closes. We've got a library here that's open every day of the week. People are using this building, people are owning this building and feel at home here. I want this library to be full of life. And a busy, creative, playful library, as well as one that I hope is inspiring and somewhere that people can focus on research, on study, on learning. It's really a centre for our community to gather together and discover new ideas, hear and share their stories.
Well, check it out. It's like I said, every time I go there 6 times a year, I think, for board meetings and for just to be there. And every time it almost brings me to tears, because this is the library. This is what it is. It has everything. I mean, it's gorgeous. I had once again lunch with a different queen and Megan. They were still friends at that moment, or friends not, but they were at least still talking to each other. The queen was sitting over there. I was sitting over here, and I was hoping to make a photograph, but you were not allowed to make photographs. They were very strict about it. No cameras. So I didn't do it, but here she is. So once again, as I said, curating curiosity, keeping sharing and making stories. I think those were the two things that really moved their heads. I think most of the time we librarians are used to talk about, we don't have a budget, we don't have the money, we don't have the staff, we don't have the skills, we don't have the person to do this. But most of the change and innovation comes from having an open mindset. And I used to say a good idea always finds a budget. And in my own experience, that most of the time is true. I always found a budget for the ideas that I had. And I know it's more difficult than that, but it starts with having a mindset. These are the latest thing that I discussed on the board. I think it's not even public. But anyway, this is the new strategy idea from the document of Story House. The values of the librarians. Listen closely, look around, speak up, stand up, reach out. The market position, the vision. Culture is owned by everyone. They literally have a marketing slogan. This house is your house. And the first year that they opened, they had 120 partners to program inside the space. It's like amazing. It was... From day one, it was like a huge success. The mission, we work every day to be a creative home for our communities. I cannot add anything to it. I mean, this is such an amazing idea. Lots to talk about. Just some slides, like Doc 1. I brought this from Doc 1. I think the idea that everything happens in the building, on the floor. I organized a conference there not so long ago. And you hear the sounds from rhyme time. So you heard Old MacDonald had a farm through the speakers. And the speakers were saying like, I said, yeah, well, I can't help it. This is Story House. This is what's going on. This is rhyme time, and we're not going to stop rhyme time for you. So deal with it. And if there's musicians, you will have a concert in the cafe restaurant. If they're playing Hamlet or Macbeth, you will find Hamlet dressed up in the cafe having a beer in the evening to break from. And you can ask questions to Hamlet, like, why are you making such a fuss out of Denmark? Why? What is it? I mean, you can do it. I wanted to mention Young Story House. It was one of the first ideas I had. You need to create a group of young people in your own community and give them the key to the building. Give them the key to the building. So they are giving a budget. They can do their own theater show, programming. It's not like an overexpensive budget, but they have some budget to program. They are deciding about what do the gender-neutral toilets look like, or what does this look like, the design of the building, the signage. They have a say in almost everything. There's 2 members of Young Story House on the board. So they're actually really involved in everything. The Arts Council in England, overall organization, gave £500,000 to Story House to curate this initiative for 5 years. To 5 years, have someone providing the training that I wanted. If they wanted to train in marketing, communication, how to make a poster, how to do this, they can learn it in Story House. So there was some budget, and now they've grown out of the building. They used to be in the building, have their own office desk in Story House, but they are growing so fast and getting so important that they moved out of the building and were giving a new space, which I don't particularly like. But this is what it is. I mean, it's sometimes success comes along. There's places. I have 4 libraries on my desk at this moment who want a Story House. We want to be Story House. Can you help us be Story House? So there's almost every month there's a group traveling to England to visit, and they built a 2 already. This is the first one that they brought the ideas, and they even brought the interior designer of Story House to the building, making that same sort feel to it. The bicycle on the ceiling is from Jan Jansen, the first Dutchman who ever won the Tour de France, the cycle competition in France. He lives in this town, so he was happy to donate his winning bicycle to the library. So the carpet is hanging in the Rijksmuseum. The artist who made this painting came from this area and allows, I think, the descendants of that painter gave rights to build the carpet. They have a poster of the original in their own library, so they honor the story house like we got the ideas from you. It's happening. How much time do we have? I cannot read this anyway. I don't know, half. Okay, that's good. So some examples. There'll probably be more later on. I finished some. I put up some slides yesterday as well. The trends that we're facing, the things that are happening in the world. Just to share with you, the technology. What does it take to trust a decision made by a machine? That's a good question, and I think that now more and more people are willing to let decisions be taken by machines, which is very interesting. Artificial intelligence is usually about, we're going to talk about it later on, it's usually about making decisions. But having said that, what if we trust machines to make decisions, to do surgery, to operations, to do other work? Are we aware that some of the decisions made by machines may not be correct, that they are learning, the large language models are now capable of deceiving, of coming up with not specifically the truth, but more focused on what do I need to deliver, and the way to get to that point of delivery can sometimes ignore actual facts or truth or whatever it is. Do we realize that? Do our library users realize that? What is our role? Misinformation, something that we're dealing with every day. We see the news, we hear the stories from some sites, but is it the real information or is it, I don't know. I was doing a presentation years ago in Russia, Ekaterinburg, what was the name of the city? Somewhere in St. Catherine, I don't know. Anyway, it was somewhere far away from Moscow in Russia. And I came to a museum and I was really impressed by the fact that they had one wall of the museum that was the Western propaganda in their view, like the newspapers from Europe, America and everything else. And one side was the Russian stories on the wall. And you can actually see the events happening and you can look on both sides, which I thought was I was really impressed. As prejudiced as I am as a Western guy, I was not expecting to find this in the heart of Russia, to have this sort of open mindset and to show it like that, which is my bad, of course. Collections. How do we look at our collections? I was in your public library yesterday, and it was like full of books. It was an amazing. I love libraries, so for me it was like heaven. But I still think how do we look at our collections? Do we need so many books? Our books, like in Story House in Chester, the books are really like, they were very worried about the book, not enough shelves. So I said we build the bookshelves in the cafe restaurant up to the artist dressing rooms. There will be books everywhere in the building. You will have enough books. We'll buy you some new books as well, and some new magazines. But this book's the way that we tell our stories. For me, the library is about storytelling, about keeping stories, sharing stories, making stories. So how do we tell our stories? Interesting. Visitors, I put in this slide yesterday. I just found out it's 2022. The Netherlands has 18 million people now. We had 57.1 million visitors. And when you compare that to the soccer stadiums, we had 5.5. So it's like 10 times as much visitors to the libraries than to our soccer matches, which is impressive. You know, this is a great potential. Musea 30 million, theaters 16, cinemas 32, which I thought was quite good for cinemas. But the library is a really powerful institution. And I don't think our funders are always enough aware of this fact. Sustainable development goals I work quite a lot on, because I think it's important if we want to be that platform, if we want to be owned by our library users, it's important that we empower them, that we make it possible for them to learn in our institutions, in our buildings, in our services, but that they also put it to practice. Like, what can I do? What can I do to save the world? What can I do to do something about climate? What can I do to maybe less inequality in the world, the rich and the poor, and leveling the playing field and giving them access to everything? Usually libraries already do quite a bit. Literacy, of course, digital literacy. There are a number of things that we're already involved in, but maybe we can do more. It's good to think about it. So the moment I came over here, I have to tell the story. I was asked by the SDG Netherlands group, this is a different group, to organize a day for libraries. And I organized it, but they only had one day, it was the 25th of September to do it. And I said, oh, if that's the only day, we'll do it. But I forgot that I was going to come here. So I wasn't at my own day in the Netherlands but I organized it to the last minute. So I had someone to take my place. But anyway, this is important work. AI, like I said, we're going to talk about it later. I like this slide because you can really see we do have to take AI a bit back from the tech companies. We do have to have our own sort of influence on what it is like. We have 50-something million visitors. That means that we are very diverse. People from the Netherlands are coming to our buildings, and the data that's in our data sets is not so diverse. Not everybody feels represented by the data that we own. So we want to change that data and do something about bias. Libraries have a crucial role. So we will gather data, we will gather people's stories, and we will bring it back into the AI, and this way we'll make it more reliable. Art is a thing. Ursula Le Guin, also a visionary. We need to surround ourselves with art. We need to do something about well-being. I think the way people feel. We had coronavirus, of course, the COVID virus, and the loneliness that came from that. And the people, David Lankes, I wear the t-shirt. He was in my country. He came over. He said, Erik, I want to work on a new book. Can I spend some time in the Netherlands? Can you arrange me to stay for 2 or 3 weeks so we can look at what a librarian is today? David Lankes says there is 12% or 12 years shorter life to the people who are lonely because they don't get out of the house, they don't go to the public buildings anymore, they don't relate one-on-one, they stay in their bubble, they stay on their internet, on their social media, and they don't really get together anymore. Healing. Space for Kindness. This is in Scotland. That's really a part of their which is on one hand very sad. Do we need special places to be kind to each other? Obviously. I mean, it's in their future strategy. Do we teach people how to be polite and to disagree in a polite sort of sense? Like, I'm totally not agreeing with what you're saying, but I still like you. We can say goodbye and shake hands and still disagree, and it's okay. It's difficult, and it's getting more difficult every day. How do you library? I have this book. I brought it along for you if you want to have a look. It's only in Dutch, I'm afraid, but still have a look. I asked Library Avenger. Library Avenger is also in the video that I'm going to use in the workshop later on. She's a famous forecaster, so she predicts the future. She does this for companies such as Ford Motor Cars. She does it for fashion. She lives in Paris, New York. She's like famous. She lives everywhere. And she came to me at one point because her husband died, and he is a famous graphic designer. And she said, I want to have a traveling exhibition. Can you help? I said, I can, but then I want you to think about libraries. I do one thing for you, you do one thing for me. So I asked her to create a trend book, a forecasting book on the future of libraries. So she talks about the age of the amateur. In the future, when especially white-collar jobs will be taken over by technology, because those are the jobs that are going first. What will people do if people live to be 120 years old? Broaden your mind. 120 years old, and job is not the most important thing in your life. Are you still having children? Because what's the meaning of life? Well, why do they live? We already see the decline in birth in most Western places. I asked kids when they had the opening of the AI parade. We did an AI parade in the Netherlands. We had a traveling exhibition, traveling to 17 libraries in the first year with the aim to reach 1 million people to inform them about artificial intelligence. I asked these teenagers, what are you going to do? And they didn't know. They had never thought about it. Like, I want to be a singer. I want to be a writer. I want to be this. I want to be that. But we cannot all be singers and writers. We can, but we cannot all make a living out of it. So we need to look at our income. Will we have a basic income? Probably, for a large part. But what are you going to do with your expression? What are you going to do with your story? If you want to sing, you want to make a poem, it only comes to life when you share it. So the place to share it will be places such as libraries. Maybe there will be libraries. We have to. Are we ready for that? Story houses. They putting their stories of everybody on the line every day. Age of the amateur. Think about it. Everybody will have to look for a meaning in their life which is not work. What will it be? Example. Be an example to young children is a good start. Getting young people and young families in your building is a good start because they're making the future. They're creating the future. If Spider-Man is the best example, for me it is, but for some people it's not. Technology helps. These maker spaces and learning in a different way than just from a textbook is definitely bringing change about and is inspiring people. Coding, code dojos. Do you have code dojos in this country? People who teach people to code? Yeah, of course. Okay. I think that's a great way of learning. Like coding is a language. We're about language. So why do we have a problem with doing this? Some people have a problem with it. Introspective, like looking at yourself, being alone with yourself, quiet spaces. People always talk to me, Erik, but the library is not quiet anymore. Your library is not quiet. I think, well, there are quiet places. We need sort of seclusion from the outside world. I was telling Pitar yesterday that in the Amsterdam Public Library, they have a space where students voluntary, not even voluntary, they pay an amount of money. They pay $7.50 to put their phones away in a locker and to study with like a sort of a teacher sitting up front, like here. I'm sitting here. You are all working. Your phone is away in a locker. And it's completely quiet for 45 minutes and there's no social media allowed, nothing. You're just working, you're studying. They pay $7.50 for 45 minutes. 45 minutes, there's a bell. And the 4th minute, and you can stay another 45 minutes, you have to pay again. But it's booked, it's fully booked. You have to reserve the space. There's so much need for this sort of stepping away from all the things happening around you and that coming to you on your devices. This was one of my ideas to get people higher up in the building. One library said, Erik, the people don't come up the stairs. They come into the building and they stay on the ground floor. What can I do to bring them up to the stairs? So this is the Rosette Library in Arnhem, which is a great library. But the slide was not a good idea, I have to say. I think not this boy, but some boy broke his arm. And it was quite noisy. But the idea of what can you do to inspire people to... We fail. Hooray! Sometimes it's not working out anyway. But like I said, handing over your library building key and like they do in Rotterdam and quite a few libraries, having hip-hop in your library, having young people organizing their own platforms, writing their own lyrics, presenting their own shows. It's really successful in changing the image of the library and getting them more involved. Books on recipe. So you have people working dressed up like doctors in your library, and people who come to the library say, "Are you okay? Are you feeling cheerful? Can I recommend a book? Are you not feeling that cheerful? Maybe another book that I can recommend." So it's sort of a doctor's advice on what to read. People laugh about it, and the moment they laugh about it, you have a moment that you can start a conversation. And it's all about listening and starting conversations. In Japan, I saw this one. They have even like waiters who have dementia. So they're never going to remember what thing you ordered. So basically, you're going to be surprised by your dinner. If you get a dinner, you can get something completely different than from what you ordered. Inclusion. It's all about inclusion and have fun and laugh about life sometimes. I talk about Jean Tan. Jean Tan from Singapore is also in the video that I'm going to show later on. The workshop. He's one of the guys I interviewed. And he went away from libraries. For 5 years, he worked for the government. And he was not involved in libraries anymore. I know Gene from way back. And he came back and he said, Erik, I'm coming back to libraries and I have a completely different idea than what I had. I see libraries as a choreography of solutions. It's a theater of issues. It's a place where the local challenges, people can bring them to the library. We visualize them in some way. We make brochures or information, and we invite people to think of solutions, to be a theater of issues and a place where you bring solutions. Workeries. A guy from London, David Fletcher, he came up with, he worked at Microsoft. And he was tired of working at Microsoft. He wanted to start out on his own. And he started working in Starbucks, but he didn't like Starbucks. So he came across his own local library and he found an empty room and he said, can I rent that? And the library charged him way too much because it was an empty room. So he came to an agreement and he decorated the room together with a number of people who also wanted to be independent workers. And he now has places in India, in Scotland, because they started really to form a community. So when he opens a new workery, as he calls it, all the people flock together and they go to the new building and they design it and they create it because they have a lot of fun together and making communities. As a G example from the Lock Hall in Tilburg, have you ever been to the Lock Hall in Tilburg? It's an amazing, amazing library. Old railway repair place where they used to lift the heavy trains and work on the trains. They kept the industrial look, put in a lot of plants, and they do a lot of things about, they have insects that you can eat. They have, they make from old plastic that people return, they make these sort of chandeliers, these just to make people aware of sustainability and all that sort of thing. Growing mushrooms in the library together with kids. Like every week they come and see how the mushrooms are growing and you can eat them. A cafe, it says cafe inequality. So people go sit down with young people together and talk about, what do you think? Do you experience any inequality in your own classroom? Are people the same? Are we all the same? Or is there a difference? And is it an important thing to be different or not? This is in Norway. This is the Children's Library in Norway. It's very interesting. Aad Vos, Dutch architect that I worked with quite a few times, designed this one. And the library is only open to children, so adults are not allowed in the building. So even when the king of Norway wanted to visit, he had to come outside opening hours because the building was not open for adults. Quite interesting. More talks. Off by for all boot camps. Are you familiar with the work of Nina Simon? Nina Simon worked in a museum I have to say it correctly, Santa Monica, I think. And she wrote a book called The Participatory Museum. It's all about co-creation and the art of staying relevant. And after being a director of the museum, she did amazing things involving local people in the museum. She started out this movement, Off By For All movement, and I managed to get her to the Netherlands to do a workshop, 2-day workshop, on how can your organization be off by and for all. There's books about it. Check it out on the internet. It's definitely a thing that I think we need to consider. If you want to work together and program together with library users, we have to get those users also working in our buildings. They can be volunteers, they can have professional jobs, but we need to be more diverse than we are at this moment. Off by for all, ownership, very important. We couldn't be without being in a relationship. I think I found this slide somewhere, and I think we're not independent organizations or buildings or institutions anymore, and we will not be in the future. So, I think I'm way too short in my story ending, but anyway, I'm coming to the end of it. What I see for the libraries in the future is there will always be a place for keeping stories, sharing stories, making stories, but there will most of all be a place where we practice being human. What defines us as human beings? In the discussion on AI that we're going to have, we're going to have to look at what makes us different from a machine. What is it in our imagination? Is our creativity? Is our expression? Our empathy? All those qualities that we have. How do we stimulate people to share? I mean, that's what we're going to have to do. And if for questions, this is it for now. I hope you like it.